Quantum computers. This is Intelligent Performance.
Welcome to the Intelligent Performance Podcast. An absolute pleasure to have you with us. And today we have no less than Keith Fox on the show, a former professional DJ turned into now one of the leading auctioneers across the United States, helping people raise thousands and thousands of dollars from their friends, from their family, for their school, for their university, and a whole range of different topics. So Keith, first of all, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
So I am really intrigued by this whole topic, not more so because who ever thought they were like professional auctioneers? And there's that kind of thing to it, right? I feel like this is a very niche industry. And one thing I really love about this show is when you get to meet these really highly specialized people in things you've never ever thought about. So help us understand, give us your take on this whole sector. What is this space of being an auctioneer?
Well, most people, when they hear about an auctioneer, they think of like cattle or estate sales or farm equipment or, car auctions. I actually love the car auction guys. It's a lot of fun to watch. I'm a little bit different I'm what's called a benefit auctioneer specialist. And that's what's called a BAS designation. I earned that from the National Auctioneers Association. In other words, I don't do cattle, farm equipment, cars, estate sales, anything like that. I specialize in helping nonprofits and charities maximize their fundraising efforts through galas and through the auction method and through what's called paddle raises, funding needs, those kind of things. So that I'm specially trained to just do that.
And there's like a handful of people like you? Is there millions of people like you? What do you reckon?
You know what? When I first started, there was literally about 150 BAS around the world would have that designation. Now, obviously, this is a kind of exploding as more people become aware of it. A lot of the cattle guys and the estate people and all those, they're kind of moving into that more of that benefit auctioneer specialist kind of thing for that designation. But when I started, there was just a handful. Now there's probably, I wouldn't guess 500, 600, 700 around the world.
Okay, well, so, all right. Well, the Intelligent Performance Podcast is always super interested about, what are the high performance and what are the kind of the counterintuitive points that you might have, or how do you perform in this domain where I would imagine you basically got a bunch of people in a room, largely speaking, who maybe even don't even want to give money in the short sense, right? Maybe they're there for, I don't know, an AGM or an annual general meeting or a party. I'm guessing there would be a whole collection of like situations, and then they're like wheel you out and they're like, this guy's going to raise some money. Is that kind of the context, Keith, sometimes?
I would hope not. I would hope that a lot of like charities and nonprofits, they'll have an annual gala. And at that they've done their mission messaging right in their advertising and cultivating their donor base. People come, they know they're going to be asked to get. And my job is to basically find the money in the room, to get people be maybe more generous than maybe planned on getting, that kind of thing. So that's the kind of my specialty. So these events aren't just we're going to have an event and we're going to ask this guy come out and ask you for money. It's I'm in hope it's a little more fine.
A bit more transparent. I'm curious. So I've missed this actually. Typically, the first question we asked on this podcast is what would be your take on intelligent performance? And I'm curious, in your domain, specifically of being a benefit auctioneer, what do you think intelligent performance looks like in this space?
Oh, that's a great question, actually. I think where I would say earn my money, I think it's in the consultation process. And when a client calls me to book me, I always want to find out where they were, where they are now, and of course, where they want to go. What do they want to achieve with their fundraising? And not only from a financial standpoint, but from a donor cultivation standpoint. Their board, their board, who's on the board, does the board interact with the donor base? All those kind of things kind of go together to be able to get people to give more generously, kind of thing. And I think the more intelligent fundraisers out there, and especially people in my field, have a way to, in the consulting process, help the client really kind of narrow down what they're doing, why they're doing it, and most importantly, I ran into matching not only the live auction items, matching that with your donor base, and of course matching the ask to what the capability is in the room, and making sure you have the I use the word capability again, the capability, the people you're inviting, your donor base, what is their capability? Do they have the capability to give a lot? Are they not able to give a little bit? I mean, what exactly is the animal you're working with, so to speak?
Yeah, okay. So there's a bit more to it than just kind of hosting an event and saying I'm going to raise some cash, right? It's really curious because I used to be on a board for a men's well-being charity, and they're very pro kind of supporting men and kind of giving them a voice and a space to kind of properly connect outside of just kind of having it all together as often as men can and feel like they have to. They did something like this. They had one of the members come up and actually run this charity auction. And it was actually heaps of fun. I was really surprised. It was my first time kind of being in that context. You tell us, if this is to act as a resource for people who are thinking about, maybe doing something like this, where should they start? What's this process like? If you were you've seen a lot of this space, what's the kind of the ingredients of really that kind of strong running? And then we'll get into perhaps the actual performance piece of the, in the room in a moment.
So I think what you're asking me is how to set up a successful event. Yeah. I would say the number one keys are, who's our donor base? Are we going to match? Or, you wouldn't have, hunters go to a PETA event. You want to match your donor base with what you're actually raising money for, people that are passionate about your cause. A lot of times you look at, PC users versus Apple users, and the Apple user database, the Mac users, they're almost like evangelists. And you want to find is people that are passionate about your cause, and they're almost can be evangelists for what you do and help you raise funds to. So let's face it, if you run a homeless shelter, you want people that have empathy and sympathy and are passionate about helping homeless people, because the more money you raise for your cause, that's the more people you can get off the street and so on and so forth.
But you're saying, wouldn't that be typical in a non-profit world though? Or are you saying, because they would be mainly talking to their membership perhaps, or are you saying that they might be kind of using this event as a way to promote themselves more broadly?
Well, I think that's also matching your board, treating your board members to match your vision. Like you mentioned, you're a member of the men's philanthropic organization. Yeah. Obviously, you're passionate about what you do, and the more people that you can bring in to share your passion, the more you can potentially fundraise, because everyone believes in the same mission. So everyone wants to support and propagate that same mission.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Okay. So matching now. So when you say match, you're thinking about like the items or the things to be sold. Is that what you mean? So okay, if we've got all these people, and maybe if we can keep going down the men's just because it might be relatable in terms of, okay, so, men's mental health. So how would you think about that if you've got a range of different things? Maybe you could act as a quasi consultant for me. I'm like, how would you navigate this? Or what would you be thinking about in terms of pricing?
Well, I can put it into terms of event I just did last night. Last night was for a particular organization that it was a part of a golf, and normally it was a golf tournament. And there, obviously, we bring a bunch of golfers to an event to raise funds for, let's say, cancer research. You want to eliminate cancer. Well, you got 300 golfers in the room. What can we sell to golfers to help raise money?
Okay.
Go. Are we going to sell them African vacations? Not really. No, we want to auction off or get items donated that are match our, we want to read the room. We want to match to what's in the room. Golfers. Okay. So we want to do like Callaway drivers. We want to do golf outings. We want to do like packages to Pebble Beach and things like that will match our audience.
Understood. Okay. Okay, cool. So let's talk about that event specifically. So, was it a cancer drive? Was that the charity?
No, it was. It was an event for kidney.
Kidney. Okay, great. Kidneys. Perfect. We love kidneys. So okay, tell us about that then. So yeah, these must be golfers, or they were people who are interested in kidneys but played golf. I'm guessing, was that the situation?
Oh, these were golfers that all come together. They do a tournament, and the tournament is there to raise money for this particular foundation.
Okay, got you. Okay, cool. So they kind of have a quasi interest in maybe kidney health, but not necessarily like a direct one.
Well, this is where mission specific, advertising and those kind of things. Your mission statement, when it gets put out, it's people that love golf and also want to support this cause. Yeah. So we marry those two. We get a bunch of golfers to come together and win prizes or whatever doing a golf tournament. Oh, by the way, it also supports this particular foundation.
Got you. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And that's that up.
So you're in the room. Let's move to the performance piece. You're in the room. I would feel like this is going to be. I thought I would be nervous if I was stood there in your shoes. I reckon. I think I'd be really nervous actually. Because you're really reliant on this receptive audience, and it's a bit like you've got like a speaking gig, but you've got a speaking gig which you then have to commercialize your audience, and you're also going to get instant feedback about quote unquote how good you are, right? And like, which is interesting. It's a bit like, I'm thinking it's like sales, right? Sales, you get instant feedback about how your communication, how effective your communication is or isn't. And you're doing that in a public domain, and everyone's going to find out. So like, how do you first of all navigate that pressure? Do you experience it as pressure?
I think that the first thing you need to do is make it fun and engaging. Right. You don't want to go up there and here, so it's a fail, put your vids up. I mean, you want to, and I'm more on the interactive entertainment side, which makes me a little bit different from most auctioneers. I'm not up there on the stage calling bids. I try to be, without being in your face, kind of, oh, give now kind of thing. I'm more of a interactive entertainment. Let's make it light, let's make it fun, but here's why we're here.
Okay, cool.
Or the more you give, I mean, we have live auction item number 1, Pebble Beach golf course. Hey, we know we know the worth. We know we can go on Expedia and get whatever for it, but okay, what's it all worth? Is it worth X, A, B, C? Hey, it's worth whatever you're willing to give to not support what we're doing. Yeah. So you want to, as transactional as a live auction is, you want to try to get it more philanthropical, because like I said, anyone can go on Expedia or Priceline and book it in Mexico, but you're trying to get people to have fun, be competitive, have fun, and also support the cause. Know why you're there.
How do you get someone into use the word philanthropic zone, as it were? How do you transition them into that piece where it becomes less about, on Expedia I can get this for $2,000, but it's worth paying $3,000 because of the course? How do you get them to navigate that?
Well, that comes into having a good auctioneer that keeps the verbiage and keeps the message on the mission moment. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, here's why we're here. Every dollar you give goes towards ABC Foundation. And if you keep the messaging on point, people have that constant reminder. You don't want to be annoying with it, but at the same time, you want to keep why we're here. Here's why we're here, ladies and gentlemen. Every dollar you raise, like I said before, goes to ABC Foundation. And, keep it away from the transactional mindset. And it's hard. It's hard. And a lot of times it doesn't work that way. But you do your best to keep steering them towards, hey, we're giving here. This is why we're here. Here's what we're doing. Every dollar you get goes to this, foundation or what have you.
Are you priming the audience? Because I've always wondered, in these big things where you got to shoulder tap, Bob at the back or Sandra and you're like, hey, Sandra, can you bid high on something like this? Is that, I guess, is there a bunch of pre-work which goes up, which you're kind of working with people on?
That, my friend, is the best point of probably an entire interview, is how in the consulting you set the client up to do exactly that. How to cultivate their donor base, how to advertise what they're doing to their donor base to make sure that they're matching their live auction items with who they have in the crowd. Okay. You generate what I call pre-interest, like say you have a senior citizen event. And as you know, a lot of seniors love to go on vacations and trips and cruises and what have you. And then you generate that pre-interest with, hey, Sally and Bob, we have a great Alaskan cruise in our live auction, next month. We'd love to see you there. What do you think about this? And they like the sound of that. And then you're on the right track with, hey, how much we'd love to see you there. We'd love to have you bid on this. Oh, you bet we'll be there. That sounds like a lot of fun. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
In the consultation, setting yourself up and setting the expectation of your event and who you choose to invite to the event. A lot of people think that, the more people, the better, the more getting. And that's absolutely not true.
Okay, got it. You're there now. I'll take us back to this golf thing last night. I feel like it's a super topical. It's got what were your, how did it play out, some of these interactions around example of Pebble Beach and things like that? How do you get, Bob over here, Sandy over here to quote unquote compete, or how do you foster that friendly, competitive nature to enhance? Because I guess that's the power of auctions, right? I know down here, a lot of, in metro areas, property goes to auction because people just pay more when it's at an auction. It's just, the FOMO kicks in or whatever it is. So, what's the psychology you're tapping into, and how do you kind of cultivate that in that kind of context?
Well, as the auctioneer, you want to foster that healthy competition for an item, and it's in the verbiage I use, and it's in the play back and forth between maybe two bidders that Bob wasn't going to give 3,000, but Steve over here is giving at 35. Well, Bob cannot be done. You want to get him to go, the 4,000, you want to foster that, hey, if you don't do this, he's going to take it from you kind of thing that you said FOMO, that fear of missing out. Yeah. You want to try to tap, not necessarily in a nefarious way, but in the way that, I'm not going to let him do that. And again, keeping on your mission statement, your mission moment, and your mission messaging to, hey, why we're here is not necessarily to get you a great deal on the vacation. We're here to make sure we support it. Every dollar you give gets one more homeless off the street, gets, one more dialysis machine in the hospital, and so on and so forth.
So can you just take us to, in a practical application when you've got Steve versus, I forget the other name now, apologies, but the...
that.
Say that again, Keith?
I'm making those names up.
No, of course, I totally get it. So... I'm curious in that interaction. So as Steve goes to 3.5 and you're kind of trying to get to 4, are you weaving in at that point the reminder around the messaging part? Don't forget why we're doing this, and here's what, this is so great. Is that how you're doing it, or what do you actually, what does it look like?
Yes, that, and a lot of times you can use and you have to really read the room to know if you can get away with it. And doing a school event, like a private school or a Catholic school, I do every year. And it's kind of, it looks like they let their kids more than you do. that kind of thing. You have fun with it, that kind of thing. Well, I know one loves my kids more than I do.
That's great. I love that.
With that, looks like he doesn't have the money. How about you? Those kind of little digs that are well intentioned. They're not, and you have to be really careful. But you don't want to insult people. You don't want to offend them. But you want to have fun with them. And at all, it's totally called in the moment. And a great auctioneer will read the room. They'll see, okay, what can I get away with here? Is my crowd having fun? Did I set myself up and my crowd with my introductions or whatever I'm saying to make sure they're going to have a good time? And they're the kind of crowd where I can say this, you got Bob and Sally, husband and wife are together, and, they're conferring back and forth. So no spousal interference. This is only to me, that kind of thing. You got fun with them in that way. They're, and the whole crowd laughs and everyone's in a good mood. Oh, okay, they'll put the brittle powder to go higher in that. I think a lot of you can't predict it. Most of it's kind of in the moment, so to speak. And the great auctioneers are able to read that, tap into it, to use it to their client's advantage.
Your background was probably different to many auctioneers, right? In terms of this kind of DJ kind of space. I'm curious, what did you learn being a DJ for so long? I think you were DJ, you mentioned 20 years in a range of different clubs, back in the days in the 80s when you play anything, it's not so, these days it seems to be a lot more niche. And if you drop rap in the middle of a house, a club which is all a house, you'd be kind of thrown out, right?
Or play country at midnight. Yeah, I understand.
So what were some of the things you found which have actually transferred really nicely in terms of entertainment? Because I can imagine, actually, I don't really know what it's like how do you, getting a crowd G'd up, or, learning from, how a crowd responds. I think that's always very interesting. It's almost like this kind of feels like a leadership tension almost, maybe, if you're the DJ, you're trying to tease people out or encourage them. Yeah. How do you navigate that?
That's another great question. I think it all boils down to thinking on your feet.
Right.
Taking advantage of those little key moments you see maybe in the crowd, or maybe, I did a lot of weddings and a lot of corporate events. And it's knowing who your client is, number one, knowing how far you can kind of push the boundary, number two, and number three, if I got my CEO on the dance floor for the first time, and he's a fun-loving guy, and the secretary said, "Oh, have fun with him," because you always want to clear things with your client before you do it. Like a lot of times that his right hand, his secretary or his assistant would, "Oh yeah, have fun with that guy," or don't say a word to him, kind of thing. I want to find that out. But you got the CEO on the dance floor for the first time at the holiday party in 10 years. "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, there's Bob. He's a wild man," that kind of thing. And everybody, cheers on. And it elevates the excitement in the room. And I'm just talking strictly from DJ, but you want to really keep that momentum and excitement kind of going. You want to keep that whole feel-good vibe happening for you when you're at a party or an event or what have you. I've always been a big league believer in the most successful entertainers or DJs, quote unquote, are great entertainers. It's not you, right? It's how do you feel after you left the room, after the party is over, after the auction is over? How do you feel? One of my favorite quotes is Maya Angelou, and people will forget what you said or did, but they always remember how you made them feel. And you always walking away with that warm, fuzzy feeling, not from the party or their company or their auction or the foundation or the charity or the nonprofit. You want that, really tap into that warm fuzzies, and that way, that's how you generate more philanthropic giving. That's my belief.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really, I guess it is super critical, right? And there's that fine line between tension of kind of going too far, but also, and that can be tricky. I know from having done speeches or engagements, we do training largely. That's what I do when I'm not doing this. Is there you need to find that line, but that can be tricky because sometimes you can read the room wrong, or you can say something in a moment. You're like, "Ooh, that didn't land."
You thought it was funny, but not funny.
Yeah, well, everyone else found it funny, but maybe she didn't, or something like that. I've had that. How do you navigate something like that in terms of your work? Because like if it do you play into that perhaps? Like do you try and ostracize like one person as long as it brings the rest of the group together, or how do you think about
I have to really think and dig. I always, uh, used to be back in the old days, you could say pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Now, as the social climate changes, more and more careful, and nowhere is that more acute than in professional fundraising. Because what you don't want to do, offending the guy at a bar or at a wedding, big deal. But offending one of the board members at auction event, no, number one, you're not going to get invited back. Number two, they may alienate that person, and you just never know what the snowball is you're going to cause. So you have to be very careful. And I always try to ask those kind of questions during my consultation. Hey, who's your funnest person? Who likes the spotlight? Who doesn't like the spotlight? And Bob and Mary are going to give a $50,000 gift. Oh, great. Do they want to be recognized for that?
Gotcha.
Nope. They just Bob and Mary Smith gave it $50,000. Applause. Move on. Other owners like that. Hey, where are they? Where's Bob and Mary Smith? Have a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and stand up. And some donors like that spotlight, and others don't. And it's my job to find out who does and who doesn't, and make sure I follow that during the actual event.
Makes sense. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. That's really cool. Let's come back to the DJ piece. I think I asked too many questions in one go. So I'm curious, what did you learn in that capacity, which has you or helps you figure out, okay, the dynamics of a crowd?
What helps me figure out the dynamics of a crowd? How they respond to me when I make an announcement, how they respond. Like, I always liken that with, ladies and gentlemen, like I would introduce a bride and groom, and if people are just over the top, hipping and hollering and yelling and screaming for the bride and groom, I kind of know what kind of crowd I have. But I look at the subtleties of the interaction when I tell them, or interaction with the bride and groom, or interaction with the CEO at their Christmas or holiday party. I try to look at those kind of things to see, okay, if they're tepid with their reaction, I've got to walk a little bit more gingerly in what I do. But if they're over the top with whatever, I can be to the wall with my interactions with them, because I know what I can and can't do. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I think so. So you're saying that it's funny, as you were talking, I was thrusted back to being an MC at a wedding, and I'm now kind of applying what you're saying live to, like, oh my God, did I do a good job? What did I do? How did it go? Yeah. So actually, I found MCing really, really tricky, actually, because you're trying to even introducing the bride and groom, like, because you've got a whole mishmash of people typically there who met for the first time, right? So you're saying it's like you've got to just see, you kind of test and then you see. Is that what you're saying? And so you go, okay, I'll try the bride and groom, and then go, okay, well, that was muted, or if it was like OTT, okay, cool, then I'm going to have some more fun with this. Is that what you're really getting at?
I think yes. And I also think it's in knowing your client beforehand. Obviously, you're not going to be the MC of a wedding, the people you don't know, unless you just got thrown into it, the other guy hit by a bus or whatever. But I always look at it, water seeks its own level. Like attracts like. So if, I can't imagine, opposites sometimes attract, but for the most part, you're going to have, if you've got a party groom and a party bride, chances are you're going to have a party crowd.
Okay. Yeah.
and being really, really broad here with my terms, but that will pretty much tell you. And in your pre-consultations with the client, you get a feel for who they are, what they like, what they don't like, because you ask those kind of questions. You want to always, hey, how do you feel about this? What's your opinion on that? And who you have the number one person that you love, all those kind of questions you ask ahead of time. That'll give you a pretty good picture of what you're up against, what you can do, and what kind of channels you need to go down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you. I guess maybe the tricky thing in a marriage context or at least a wedding is that sometimes you do have kind of, there's the people, and then there's the context of like the wedding can be like a high stress. They don't want it to go bad. They kind of,
Right.
Like there's that other side of sometimes they want to have a really good time. Sometimes they don't want to push the line. Like I know with my own wedding, that was kind of like, I suggested some things. Well, I was like, absolutely not. I was like, that would have been really fun to do if we had done it. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's a great point, and I don't want to step on you, but I think again, it's in those kind of situations, it's my job to be super easygoing, super amiable, and just try to, because I've had really high stress events before where it's my job is to come in like, hey, relax, trust me, all going to be fine. You enjoy your day. You're here to have the best time ever. This is a once in a lifetime event. And I don't know how we got sidetracked on weddings and DJ work here, but I always approached it like, hey, people gravitated towards me because they knew of the reputation I did, and they're going to have a great time. So I attracted, sometimes I had a high stress, like the bride, or a lot of times the groom. No, we're not doing that. And I'll try to give like a music list is a classic example. They give you a music list, and I would try to say, hey, you know what? My job is to please, really, the bottom line, all the people all the time. I want to keep the dance floor full, people partying, having a great time. Your music list is great to listen to going down the road by yourself in your car. It's another thing to get, 200 people to dance to it.
Yeah.
So let's try to, give me a little latitude in me playing what I feel is going to work based on my 20 years of experience in doing exactly this. In 9 tenths out of 10, they're open to that.
It's interesting that I guess the two key things, or big thing coming through, whether you're raising capital, whether you're fundraising, or whether you're preparing for a wedding DJ, is preparation. Right, that's what you're big on, right? You're trying to do as much, basically, that the legwork is done before, right? And then I think you're doing a really nice job there of kind of like getting client feedback and then going, well, that's great, but I really like that you like Shania Twain and you really want to just do greatest hits, but maybe we should think about some other tunes as well. Like
they hire you for a reason, right? It's
yeah.
Rarely like, I'm going to hire you for this. You're known for this. You do a great job, but I want you to do every single thing that I tell you to do. And you're like, here's your iPod. Off you go. So, and I think that's more, and what I try to pride myself on is in the consulting process for nonprofits and charities is like, here's, from my experience, here's how we set up a successful event. Here's the run of show. Here's where we should put these things. And here's how long these speeches should last. And here's where we should do this and how long that should go on. And what are the most impactful things we can use for our mission moment statement to raise the most money we possibly can and tap into people's emotions and have them really have a heartfelt moment. Try to at the event to say, yeah, you know what? I want to support. I'll get more than I planned on, more than I wanted to, but it feels good to do that. And that's my job, is to set my clients up to make sure that they can have their donor base feel good.
I want to talk about mistakes and what not to do, because I feel like often you learn a lot from when it goes wrong. And I'm curious, can you tell us about a time where it kind of was, you learn a lot, but it really didn't go as you'd hoped or expected, and that can be a useful lesson. And I guess is a short way of asking, what are the key mistakes that people make in this space that you've seen, practically experienced, that would be a kind of caution to people going down this route?
I can name two, and the number one is not, we touched on it before, is not matching, not necessarily, like we're supporting a senior citizen foundation, and we're not matching our live auction items to what senior citizens would do and or support in the live auction. In other words, you wouldn't do a dirt bike racing, well, maybe you would, a dirt bike racing, championship to an 83-year-old couple. That want to be your live auction item. So, and another thing is making sure the actual item matches the donor base. What is the capability of giving in the room? A $15,000 vacation to Italy is great. It's glamorous. It has all those things. But if we don't have the giving capacity for that particular package in the room, let's bring it down to a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 package that will actually bid on, that you're not going to fall short of. I would think is the thing I really try, because I've made that mistake before. Oh, this is a client who's saying, well, we have a $20,000 vacation or cruise to Alaska and all those things. That sounds great, but you get in the room and you try to actually auction that package off. And a lot of the times it's consignment, and we could spend a whole nother session on what clients should use consignment items and which clients should try to get their live auction items 100% donated. But getting back to the consignment, you struggle to sell that package, and you have to you struggle to sell it. And it's an up climb everywhere, because how an auction is going to go from your out of the gate, you can find out at your first live auction item, how many hands go up, how many paddles. If I got one or two, it's going to be an uphill battle. If I got, 10 or 15 or 20 on my first, I can make big jumps to hopefully reach that goal, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And the second item is when we do what's called a paddle raise or a fund in need, where you do a straight ask. It's generally after the live auction. You have your mission moment, maybe a testimonial, maybe an emotionally impactful video about your cause, what you do, and you go into a straight ask. You ask at different financial levels. Maybe first level is 50,000, or maybe it's 5,000, whatever it is, and you don't line up pre-committed donors at those levels. So the board members haven't talked to their donor base about, hey, Bob, I know last year you gave very generously to our organization, and we loved your gift of $15,000. We're having another event. Would you be willing to coming in and can we count on you for that gift this year? What have you? And I try to teach my clients to make sure you get those pre-committed donors at those levels, because nothing worse is coming out with crickets at your first 2 or 3 levels of ask, because then that just kind of torpedoes the whole fund in need, or the whole paddle race. That way, if people come out of the gate, oh, we got 2 people at 15, we got 4 people at 10, we got 3 people at that momentum catches on to other people. No, I'll give. But if you have those first 3 levels are dead, you're going to have to struggle getting those lower levels to give as well. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think ultimately it's really, this is all coming back to prep, right? That's the kind of, if you want to nail your fundraising, it is all about preparation. It's about asking the right questions. It's about making sure the right people in the right room, but also making sure you've got the gifts and the donations or whatever they might be. Consignment, I'm guessing, are things. Well, actually, just explain consignment for us briefly.
Well, consignment is, and there's millions, well, not millions, but there's a lot of companies out there that sell what's called consignment packages. There are companies that specialize in putting together vacations or what have you, and they sell that to, they give that to the client, and the client says, oh, I'd like to, put this Italy vacation to my crowd. Well, the cost of that vacation may be, let's say, $5,000. But that's what it costs you. But if you can only get the bidding to 6, your client only makes 1,000.
Got it.
So that is not a very good ROI. So what we try to do is in the consultation process is dig in a little deep. Okay, for lack of a better term, is the money in the room? If the money's in the room, I'm going to do my best to get it all that I can for you. But if the money is not in the room for this particular package, we may want to think about something else.
Yeah, got it.
We want to get your clients a good ROI on whatever package that they're considering. And we want to match that package to the giving capacity of whoever's in the room at that particular event.
Keith, I've learned more today about auctioneering and MCing. I really wish we'd spoken before I did a couple of wedding MC gigs, actually, because I think my preparation could have been improved. And yeah, and I think it's a real, I guess, what you've identified here is that this is a real speciality, right? And getting it right, the right person to help you navigate this is very, very powerful, which is what we find sometime again when it comes to, specialized expertise. And if you acknowledge that this is specialized and if you've got someone who's good at going to help navigate this, tell me if people have been listening to this and gone, God, Keith sounds like a world of information in terms of this domain, and I had no idea that this is what I really should be doing. What's the best way for them to contact you, reach you, and kind of engage and find out how they might be able to approach this or apply this at their own event?
Our website is foxfundraising.com. And of course, if we're in the U.S., we have a toll-free number, 800-828-9599.
Cool. And just so I'm like kind of the scale of your business, how many events are you kind of doing on an annual basis at this point? Is it kind of, what's that look like?
I do between 50 and 60 events a year.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow. So, yeah.
Not a lot compared to some. And I will just say a lot of people, you get a great auctioneer up there, they make it look easy. And that's in the preparation. And that's why people think it's so easy, but it's kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I think you've got balls of steel kicked. It's okay. Thank you so much for taking the time out to chat to us. It's been, I've really, really enjoyed just diving deep into it in an area which I had no idea about. So hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. And Keith, I'll make sure we'll link to your website in the show notes below here. And it's been great having you.
Thanks for getting a brewery for me, man.
You're very welcome.
All right. Have a great day.